Yeah. Oh, we are live. Good morning.
It's like an accident. It's like we don't really know what we're doing. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for watching Business Funsize. I nearly said 10 at 10 then, the old branding. Business Funsize Live, 10 minutes of Q&A every Friday.
Yay! We weren't here last Friday and lots of people sent me messages. Where were you? We needed some Debbie and Bertie time. I felt like when you weren't there. So we're sorry, but we thought we'd pause last week. And this week we're talking literally about the power of pause. So there we go. We were practicing what we preached. We just didn't tell you that we were pausing.
It was a clever marketing ploy, wasn't it? That's what we did.
To make you miss us. Come on. So the power of the pause, and the kind of part of the reason we're doing this is because this is half term, and so lots of people are pausing anyway. I'm in my nan's house, so this is my nan's house, so I'm pausing, but coming here for you. And I'm a really big believer in stopping. There's a lot of go in business, isn't there? But I believe that stopping is super powerful. Stopping, having a break, regenerating your brain, your body, your ideas, all of that stuff. So, yeah, the power of the pause. That's my nan's very loud. Hello.
It's all happening today.
It's all happening today. So yeah, the power of pause. I've got a few things to say, but Bertie, do you have anything to add to that as we get going?
I was just letting you talk. No, I think it's a very important thing, right? I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think the stuff that you see, it's almost like to be an entrepreneur, you've got to hustle and just work constantly. And do you know what? I actually believe there is a time and a place for that. Like there was a time and a place for that when I was younger and doing things younger back in the day. But equally, you do need to recognize that time just to stop and actually figure out what it is. And I think that's what you're going to go into now, isn't it? Doodah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that a lot of the time we are doing the job, working, and we can feel like that's productive. But if we're not taking the time to stop and reflect and work out what our priorities are and rest our brains, we can end up overwhelmed. We can lead to burnout. We can end up working on the wrong things because we're not actually focused. So I think actually just giving yourself that time to stop is super important. But I'm always amazed by the amount of clients I have who haven't had any break in the last 6 months or 12 months, and they're just go. And they almost feel like if they take their foot off the gas, everything will crumble. It's all going to fall down around them. And I think that actually it's all going to fall down around you if you don't create time to pause, to be bored. I think that when we're bored, we're creative. So if my daughter says I'm bored, I'm always like, great. Because if we're always consuming, how can we be creative? So I think actually giving yourself a break is super important. Steve Jobs, we all know who Steve Jobs is. So every 2 years, he would take an entire week off. He would go into the mountains on his own. He would turn his phone off, his computer off, and he would just sit there for an entire week once every 2 years and just allow himself that time to pause, to be creative, to think about things differently. And I think that it's so important if we want to build successful businesses to build that in. Like that might be every 3 months you have a pause. It might be like Steve Jobs, every 2 years you give yourself an entire week off. But going, the momentum doesn't necessarily mean you're working on the right stuff. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're productive because you're working 70-hour weeks. There's lots of stuff around that. So just building that in is super important for us as business owners.
Yeah, you're completely right. And there's so many different ways to pause. And I think everybody's different. Everybody's business is different. Like for me now, I've got different pauses throughout my day. So it's, I have I'll get up at 5 and then I've started walking in the morning, not far, only like half an hour before then I'll go to the gym. But actually in that time, that's when you're just not thinking or not talking, it's like, oh, that's when you have your best ideas. So it's those things like for me, it's like when I'm either just walking, doing nothing or in the shower, that's where the ideas come for me. And it is just like when you just what you would class as being bored normally, not thinking or not doing anything. So you do have to put those times in. I have a lot of time in the afternoon where I'll just not really do anything and not work, and just take that physical time out of my day. But then I might do some work later on in the evening. So it's all about what works for you as an individual. But what I do know now is sat at your computer constantly is not productive, and that does not work for me at all anymore. And even though it has in the past, like when I look back to, you know, sort of building up Fill My Belly.com, for example, that was, you know, like I was literally working from 8 a.m. in the morning till midnight. Looking back, I was not productive, you know, in all of that time. And a lot of the time was working on the wrong stuff because I just didn't know. I just thought, you know, that's what you do. You literally just work solidly and it will work out. And it did, but I would do things a lot differently if I was to do that again. So, yeah, pausing and actually taking time to rest and reflect. And as Joe says there, free thinking time. Absolutely. It's, thank you, Joe. It's really, really important.
Yeah, and it can be a week long, once a year, like Steve Jobs. Like, we know that university lecturers, they have sabbaticals, they have time built into their careers where they go away and write books and think about, you know, their area of expertise. It can even be, you know, as you cross the threshold of a door, you take a moment to pause to just collect your thoughts. So you're not rushing into meetings or rushing into networking spaces, and you're really giving yourself that time and space. So it can be a second, or it can be a year. You know, a pause can be all sorts of things. But that idea, you were just talking then, Bertie, about how when you were building Fill My Belly, you were working all the hours, and you're like, well, that's what successful people do. I've got to hustle, I've got to put the work in, I've got to do all this stuff. Yesterday, I published a blog post with a number of like resources in it, and there's been a number of studies around the 25-hour working week. And actually, once we start working past 25 hours, we're less and less productive and we get more and more stressed. And there's a company I talk about, and I just Googled it. There's quite a few now that have built in this 25-hour work week. So they start at 8 in the morning and they're finished by 1 p.m. Finished! But you can go sunbathing, you can go kayaking, you can play with your kids, whatever. And those companies have shot up the fastest growing list. They've entered into, you know, the FTSE 100 because people are super productive, because they're like, we've only got 5 hours a day. So in those 5 hours, we're going to do loads of stuff. There's no lunch break. You just start, you have a break, and then you carry on. And that's just fascinating to me, because we're kind of taught you need to work at least 37, 40 hours to be productive. But the science says something completely different. All the research says that once you start going past 25 hours, you start tailing off. And I think there's some really famous people who were only working for 4 hours. So Charles Darwin, I mean, come on, Charles Darwin only worked 4 hours a day, and look what he managed to accomplish in his lifetime. And a lady called Alice Munro, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2013, only worked 4 hours a day. So some of these, you know, great people that we admire work short days. And then we look at people like Margaret Thatcher, who worked all the hours that God sends. And, you know, the science now points that that's maybe what gave her Alzheimer's, because she didn't sleep and rest her brain and have that enough time for regeneration. So there's so many reasons why we shouldn't be working all the hours that God sends. You know, who wants Alzheimer's, and who wants to be kayaking in the afternoon every day? Hey, come on, let's get out of there. So yeah, I think we need to change the way we think about what productivity looks like. You know, it's not slaving away. That doesn't mean that. And I think sometimes people feel like, well, I'm not going to be successful, or I don't deserve success if it's not hard. You know, or I don't deserve the money if it's not hard. And that's really important to unpick all those mindset things that we carry around with us.
It's one of my interesting when you're saying about like the 4 and 5 hour sort of day, because it's actually one of my like productivity techniques. If I'm working with someone that is really, really struggling to stay focused, and then start right at the beginning, it's like, right, I only want you to work for 1 hour today. 1 hour. And then it's amazing the amount of work that you can get done in that hour, probably much more than you would have done in a whole day if you only have an hour, because it's procrastination. It just builds up, doesn't it? So if you've got all day to produce, and it's what do you call it? Is it Parkinson's law? Something law, where you will,
let's say it is.
you will use the time to if you give yourself 2 weeks to complete a task. You will take 2 weeks to do it, and that's it. On a Saturday now, with the kids, we do what we call the 6-hour clean, and then we started this like 5 weeks ago, and it's working really well. So literally 1.5 hours each. So there's 4 of us, and we all clean the house, and like it's amazing afterwards. But everybody does it. But it's literally we start an Alexa timer, 90 minutes. Everyone's in. It's a bit like a game.
Go for it.
And that's it. And like we do it every Saturday morning now. So, but yeah, it's amazing what you can get done in that set amount of time. So if you are struggling with things, just take an hour. We've got some comments here. So we'll just go through these now. So we've got Michelle, who's saying, in bed is where my ideas flow. I drive my hubby mad fidgeting and writing them down. Brilliant. I always say, like, if you're having ideas, if you can't sleep because of ideas, just keep a pen and paper next to the bed and jot them down. So as soon as they're written down, you don't have to worry about them anymore. So what else have we got?
Joe wrote there saying, whoa, burnout can creep up without noticing. Yeah, exactly. It can. You just a bit more, just push a little bit more, just push a little bit more. Oh, I'm slightly tired, but it's okay. And then before you know it, you're flat out. You've got a cold. You've got all, your body kind of gets, I don't know, just, it's like the Duracell bunny. We're not Duracell bunnies, are we really? We do need to rest. We can't just keep going. So that's us today, isn't it? Talking about the power of pause. What are we going to talk about next week, Bertie? Oh, Lee wants to cut down his 60-hour week. Yeah, Lee, that doesn't sound good to me. Yeah,
absolutely. It's that's a very, very long time to be working.
Yeah,
it's all subjective, isn't it? Different businesses, and but I think a lot of people do say that they can't. There's always a way that you can. There's always a way that you can. And you need systems and processes, and then it's all about delegation and things like that. So maybe we should talk about that next week. Should we talk about this, like if you're working too hard, what systems and things you can put in place to actually start reducing the amount of hours work?
Systems and processes. Yay! Okay, so we'll see you next week. Next week, I won't be in Gosport. I'll be in Yorkshire, so there'll be a different background as I'm pausing for the next 2 weeks. But I'll take you with me wherever I go. So yeah, see you all next week.
I'm going to have a change of scene. I might just work in another room or something. Next week.
Come on, let's shake it up.
Debbie's traveling everywhere. I'll take Zippy with me. Right then.
Across the country.
Enjoy. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you next week, 10 a.m. for 10 minutes ish. All right then. See you later.